Switching to your secondary is always faster than reloading. Um, some of you guys who got into playing Call of Duty, like I did way back in the day, this is probably the first thing you actually learn from playing shooters is, to always switch to your sidearm should you run out of ammo for your primary, or if you're not able to reload in time. Um, I would say this is a generally good rule. Most shooters have an option where you can select your secondary. Some of them don't, but a lot of games usually allow the option to have some type of secondary weapon equipped. So I would say the rule still generally holds up, even with the newer titles. Um, so we're gonna hop on the firing range. We're playing World War II now. I haven't played this game in a minute. So I'm gonna show you guys what I mean, right? So let's take a weapon here like the bar. Now the bar was a pretty, if I'm not mistaken, this is one of the top tier, one of the top weapons in the game, in World War II. It's a really good gun. It's got really good accuracy, a lot of good firepower. It was just a general, especially with the red dot reticle. It was a pretty good weapon, but a major problem with this is that it is also slow as shit when you reload, as you can see right there. So in cases like this, where you're in a firefight and you're shooting like this, right? Just do that, right? So you see how much, especially since in some games, there isn't a perk where it allows you to switch to your firearm much quicker. Usually this is in the form of fast hands from Black Ops 2. There's, other perks from other games that allow you to switch to your secondary even faster. So just as overall, in most cases, it is a good idea to always switch to your secondary, so that way you can still stay in the fight. Now, some games, like those in the Call of Duty series, will usually have a perk. This is mainly in the form of sleight of hand, which allows you to reload much faster. Now, in this game right here, they kind of ditched the perk system in favor of like what looks like ribbons for like specialist abilities, whatever. But it's the same thing, right? So here we're using what is honestly one of my favorite classes of the whole series, and that's the M1 Garand with Hustle. Like man, like me, M1 Garand and I, dude, we dominate, man. Like this, we're like Bonnie and Clyde with me and this gun right here, and especially with Hustle, it makes life a lot easier, especially for a gun like this that doesn't use magazines, it uses clips, so it really helps. Now, I'm shooting, and look, much faster. It's not slow. I can quickly get in the fight much quicker, right? So you think in this case I wouldn't need a secondary, right? Because I already have a perk that, can do much faster. Now, in a lot of cases, yeah, you can normally ditch a secondary perk, or a secondary weapon if you have a perk that, or any attachment, even if it's like dual mags, that allows you to reload much faster. But I would say this is still true even with a perk that helps you reload faster. So even though I have basically sleight of hand, it still takes like a good second just for me to get back in the fight. Now, watch what happens when I try to switch to my secondary. Okay, so I'm shooting, ammo, boom. I can get in the fight much quicker. So, even with a perk that allows you to reload faster, I would say even if you're out of ammo, or if you're in a real pickle, always switch to your secondary. Okay, it's reliable, it's there, it's at least enough to where you can run away or um, you know reload, whatever you gotta do, right? Um, an additional tip I would give for you guys is, whenever you can, because sidearms generally tend to be weaker. I would say if you do end up killing somebody, like if you kill that person right there, I would recommend picking up their whatever weapon they have, just because you'd be surprised how much you would be desperate for another primary whenever you're playing mid game, especially in games that don't allow you to equip another primary. So um, when you can, you should try to pick up another weapon, another primary as your sidearm. Now, as a final tip, there is one thing you can do to kind of sidestep this issue of either switching to your secondary or real animations. So I want you guys to watch what I do right here, right? So whenever you're out of ammo, like if you finish a magazine like I do here, you'll notice that when you reload, it usually shows you pulling the charging handle, right, to get one in the chamber. Now, a way to kind of save yourself the frames of, you know, when you're completely out of ammo, and the amount of time it takes for you to reload, is I always try to reload just before it runs out of ammo, right? So, you know, as you can see, much faster. So this is kind of like a workaround for, especially for games that don't have a perk or an attachment. Um, a good rule of thumb I found is to always reload whenever you're just about out of ammo. Now, in some games like Call of Duty, there's usually, as you can see, when it gets very low, it usually signals red, right? Or it flashes like a reload on the screen. And if you reload right there and then, you can still stay in the gunfight without having to wait for the charging animation. So I would say this is a really, really good rule of thumb whenever you're playing is you always want to reload just at the last bullet so that you can skip the charging handle animation. Now in games like Battlefield, there are certain weapons where it's actually faster to finish your ammo to waste your ammo or to finish your clip or whatever than it is to reload a bullet before it finishes. But that's very rare. So it really just depends on what kind of weapon you're using, you know, or you know what your playstyle is or stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I would say Captain Price's advice on, you know, switching to your sidearm when you're out of your primary still holds up.